Ah, the good old professional wrestling babyface. The fighters for truth, justice, and fairness, overcoming the trials and tribulations of evil heels and setting a good example to children worldwide. My heroes and yours. But babyfaces can be nasty, horrible people, and at times borderline evil. Over the years, we've seen babyfaces commit some truly atrocious deeds, from the slightly dubious, such as cheating and unsportsmanlike behavior, to downright criminal acts. The saying goes, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em, but there's joining 'em and there's completely outdoing 'em and looking like a grade A psychopath. Anyway, speaking of which, I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 most evil deeds committed by babyfaces. Join us! Number 10, the SANDMAN, Kane's EUGENE. Whilst the character of EUGENE was an ugly, exploitative, and offensive travesty, you would like to believe that WWE had good intentions when they decided to highlight a superstar with learning difficulties. Of course, this was all washed away when EUGENE became nothing more than a walking offensive stereotype. Still, he was a babyface, a childlike figure who celebrated the best of wrestling, and was an obvious target for heels. But often, he drew the ire of babyfaces too. The most egregious was at ECW One Night Stand 2, when EUGENE came out to say how much he loved ECW as the ballroom crowd pelted the poor sod with abuse. Cue an absolutely enraged SANDMAN, who proceeded to beat the piss out of EUGENE with kendo sticks and forced him to beg for mercy. True, SANDMAN isn't a babyface in the purest sense of the word, imagine a baby with that face, but this whole segment was done to elicit massive cheers from the ECW crowd for their returning hero, so for that, it counts. Number 9, Bubba Ray Dudley's table fetish. The Dudley boys were great, weren't they? Getting the tables, setting up the tables, putting people through tables, all the hits, all the big ones. The Dudleys were at their best as heels, but during a spree of powerbombing the women of WWE through tables for no reason, the crowd decided it was the best thing ever, and it turned Bubba Ray and Devon face. Whilst the Attitude Era was crazy and gave no Fs, it is strange in hindsight watching the crowd rapturously cheer as Bubba takes poor old innocent OAP Mae Young and powerbombs her off the Raw stage through a stack of tables. To fully solidify this face turn, the Dudleys entered into a feud with TNA, all centered around the fact that Bubba really wanted to give Trish some wood. After weeks of avoiding it, Trish got a bumful of splinters at Backlash 2000 as Bubba got his wish to a huge pop from those in attendance. Other victims of Bubba's table-breaking fetish included Terry Runnels, BB, Lita, and Tori. Number 8, buckle up, Teddy. Everybody loves Teddy Long, with his little shuffle and his hollering, and of course his penchant for making people go one-on-one with the Undertaker. But Undy didn't always show the same level of respect back to little Ted. At Breaking Point 2009, Taker took on World Heavyweight Champion CM Punk in a submission match, and he got the win with Hell's Gate. But hold on a minute now, player. Hell's Gate had been banned for a while, so the win didn't count. Teddy restarted the match, Punk locked in the Anaconda Vice, and the ref rang for the bell because it had only been about 12 years since the Montreal Screwjob, and so that was a fresh reference. So how did Undertaker take this loss? Why? By kidnapping Teddy Long in his spooky limo and doing God knows what with him. I know Teddy had wronged him somewhat, but this was a little over the top. Considering Undertaker has crucified and threatened to embalm people in the past, we can only assume he fed Teddy's soul to a wolf or something. Number 7, the Hollywood Backlot Brawl. For all its insane majesty, it's worth remembering that Roddy Piper and Goldust's wild, bone-breaking, blood-splattered brawl at WrestleMania 12 was all because Hot Rod didn't care for Goldust's infatuation with him. Let's not mince words here. Roddy Piper wanted to beat Goldust to death with a baseball bat due to blatant homophobia. Piper punched Goldie in the face, smashed his car up with a bat, and hunted him with a Ford Bronco whilst being chased by police, all because another bloke possibly fancied him. When you break that down, it's pretty bloody horrible. Roddy should have been flattered. Yes, when you take it on a surface level, the match is a bit of silly fun and genuinely bizarre, and when you consider the lengths these two performers went to for a lower mid-card match, it seems even stranger. At the end of the day, all this was for a woefully dated O.J. Simpson parody. Madness. Number 6, Hulk Hogan, in general. Let's ignore all the backstage machinations and revelations about his personal life, but when you look at him from purely a character standpoint, Hulk Hogan as a babyface was an abhorrent man. Desecrating the Iraq flag at WrestleMania 7, threatening to punch refs when things didn't go his way, screwing over his friends, trying to steal his best mate's girl, throwing ashes into the Undertaker's eyes. The resume of, quite simply, a red and yellow wanker. Of all the evil things the Hulkster did, the biggest was when he attempted to murder the Giant at Halloween Havoc 1995 by throwing the massive rookie monster off of the roof of Cobo Hall. Even though it was played off as an accident, Hogan still ended up causing a man to plummet to his death off a building, the bastard. Of course, Giant survived because wrestling isn't real, but the angle was still shocking, if not completely laughable. And to think, we were all shocked when he formed the NWO? Number 5, Shawn Michaels super kicks a child. After losing to The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25, Shawn Michaels took a leave of absence to clear his head and refocus. For some reason, he thought the best way to do this was by working as a chef in a cafeteria in Texas. Best bud Triple H tracked Shawn down and tried to perk him up, wanting the showstopper to remember exactly who he was. But Shawn had made his mind up and was happy getting mistreated by colleagues and the people he served, including an entitled bratty little girl. Eventually, Shawn Hickenbottom had a change of heart, giving his boss some sweet chin music and rejoining DX. But before he left for good, he had one loose end to tie up, as he super kicked the kid. Okay, the kid was a little jerk and clearly needed some discipline, but a 45-year-old trained wrestler kicking her square in the face? Too far. In fact, has anyone confirmed that Shawn didn't actually kill her? Thought not. Number 4, Randy Orton, arsonist. Despite being a frightening brainwashing cult leader, we couldn't help but rejoice when Bray Wyatt finally won the big one at Elimination Chamber 2017. This was around the time that Randy Orton joined the Wyatts, convincing us all that he was brainwashed by wearing a sleeveless hoodie and having designer stubble. Edgy. We all knew it was only a matter of time before Orton drove a wedge through the family and vanquished the evil Bray to take the WWE title back to Missouri. But when Orton revealed his plan to the world, we didn't cheer, we were all utterly horrified as Orton burned Wyatt's house down, possibly with Sister Abigail inside. Oh, Bray's gonna unleash hell on this turd, we all thought, but all he actually did was show Randy pictures of cockroaches and lost the title like a geek. Several years later, and The Fiend targeted Orton looking for revenge. Oh, Fiend's gonna unleash hell on this slightly older turd, we all thought, but needless to say, Orton got the last laugh again by setting Wyatt on fire. Number 3, Edge tortures Paul Bearer. Throughout his career, Kane was a horrible man. His dad, Paul Bearer, was also a horrible man, as too was Edge. But when Edge was babyface in a feud with World Heavyweight Champion Kane, he couldn't help himself and turned into an absolute monster. In order to get into Kane's head and win the big gold belt for the 52nd or something time, Edge decided he would kidnap Paul Bearer, hold him hostage for weeks, and torture him. There was the time Edge tied Bearer up, pelted him with dodgeballs and force-fed him, or when he ran over a dummy that Kane thought was his old man. After weeks of mental anguish, Kane broke and begged Edge to return Bearer safe and sound. Edge, the prick, refused, so Kane went looking for Paul, found a dummy on some ladders, and pushed them over out of anger. But ho ho ho, it wasn't a dummy. It was the real Paul Bearer all along. Jesus Christ, Edge, you rated R arsehole. Number 2, Bang 316. Austin vs. McMahon was the feud that defined a generation, propelling WWE to new heights as the Attitude Era became the coolest thing since yo-yos. The appeal of Austin was that he was heroic without being cheesy. He had a moral code but wasn't afraid to smack whoever got in his way. And even though Vince tried his hardest to make Austin's life a living hell, there were times that you couldn't really blame him. Take Stone Cold filling Vince's Corvette with cement, assaulting him in hospital with a bedpan, or any other rather number of hilarious hijinks, but one was far more evil than the others. After McMahon fired Austin at Judgment Day 98, Austin flipped his lid, kidnapped a wheelchair-bound Vince, and in the middle of the Raw is War ring, threatened to shoot him in the head. When Austin pulled the trigger though, a little flag popped out with Bang 316 written on it. A crying Vince piddled in his pants, and we all laughed like the secret bullies we are. That's just barbaric. Those were $800 pants! Number 1, The Undertaker buries Paul Bearer in concrete. When The Undertaker returned at WrestleMania 20, he had the power of the urn behind him once more, as Paul Bearer heralded Taker to the ring in a war with his brother Kane. The dead man was back, and the entirety of WWE were frankly terrified. Paul Heyman didn't want Taker rolling about the place battering everyone, so ordered the Dudley Boys to kidnap Paul Bearer and get one over on the dead man. Naturally, Undertaker faced those damn Dudleys in a handicap match at the Great American Bash 2004, and if Undertaker didn't purposefully lay down and lose, Paul Heyman would bury Bearer in concrete. So Taker won valiantly and saved the day, then had a change of heart and buried Bearer himself, claiming he was a liability. I mean, he could have just sent him home, given him a nice severance package and a gold watch, but no, he chose what was essentially televised murder. WWE did let us know that Bearer was okay, but still. Big evil by name, big evil by nature.